I often ask if there's any particular gardening issue you'd particularly like me to cover, and I've been asked about windy gardens. And even if you don't actually have a windy garden, you've probably got a windy spot, and I know I have, because there's a tree right in the middle of my garden, and it was too tall when I planted it, and honestly, we prop it up and then it goes right over, and we prop it up again and the wind changes direction, it goes over that way. And so I really do understand what the problems are with windy gardens. So I have gone to talk to some experts and I've got some answers. It's Alexandra here from the Middlesized Garden YouTube channel with tips, ideas and inspiration from real gardens for your garden. And not long after I was asked for a recommendation about windy gardens, I went off to the really charming seaside town of Southwold, and it's very windy there. It really is. It's a coastal town. Obviously most coastal towns are windy, but it's in Suffolk, which is also very flat. It is, however, delightful. It's a fishing village and it's hundreds of years old. So even if you're not necessarily thinking about windy plants, hang around and watch Southwold's rather pretty town centre and seafront. Now, one important thing to understand about wind is that if you have a solid wall, and we have a walled garden, or a fence, or a really thick line of evergreens, the wind will come up against those evergreens like that. It'll go up and then it'll come down and then it'll sort of eddy around on the other side. So there will be a bit of shelter just there, but there won't necessarily be shelter in the middle of your garden, which is what has happened to my garden. So it's important not to try and put a solid block against the wind. And a very thick line of evergreens can actually act rather like a solid block or fence. So the RHS suggests that you actually plant deciduous and evergreen trees, plants and shrubs, and also that you stagger them a bit. I'm putting links to all the people who've given me advice, the companies and the experts, in the description below. And one of the first people I talked to was Rosie Hardy of Hardy's Cottage Garden Plants. And Hardy's Cottage Garden Plants are one of the leading plantsmen in the UK. And she had 3 really useful pieces of advice. Firstly, she said, plant much shorter plants. Don't try and plant tall plants because they will struggle more in the wind. Secondly, she said, plant plants that are actually made to sway in the wind. Long, thin plants like grasses or gaura. Bamboo would probably be another good one. And there are some recommendations that she's given me which are in the description below. And then the third recommendation, she said, is to put trees and shrubs in as shelter, but to dot them around and not to make a steady line. I checked with the RHS as to which shrubs and trees you could use in the wind, because obviously even if they're going to be a windbreak, they themselves have to be able to withstand wind. And holm oak, hawthorn, a lot of the pines are very good. One thing that really surprised me as I walked around Southwold was to see so many roses blooming in so many front gardens. And so I contacted Michael Marriott of David Austin Roses, and he confirmed that I'm right. A lot of roses do very well in windy places. And this is because some of the species roses, the roses they all originally were bred from, actually come from some quite exposed situations. For instance, Rosa rugosas originally came from Siberia. He also says you can tell which roses should do best by looking at their flower. A single flowered rose, or perhaps a semi-double, will do much better than a full double or a really big blousy rose. A rose with a big head, like the hybrid teas, will actually probably not do as well. And the same goes when you look at the foliage of the rose. For example, climbing roses can do really well in coastal situations if they've got a stiff single stem or a couple of stems, and you tie those in really carefully. But a rambling rose, which has loads and loads of little flowers and lots of leaves, just simply creates too much body. The wind can catch it and pull it over. In terms of making a sheltered spot in which to sit in, it's also a good idea to think about a broken screen rather than a solid screen. There are some wonderful designs for broken screens out there today, and I've seen some great ones at the garden shows, for example from Stark and Greensmith, who do laser cut metal screens. Quite a few others do screens. Kate Gould Designs has got some very nice slatted screens, and the Oak and Rope Company have also got a slatted screen in which you can inscribe the poetry of your choice. So it's worth remembering, don't put up a solid wall, or don't always put up a solid wall. When we were in Australia, we stayed in a coastal home which had a lovely broken screen made of basically fence posts and strips of corrugated iron, and it did shield the washing line behind, but more importantly it filtered the wind for the seating area. So we looked at it first and thought, well, what's that there for? Why is it a sort of broken fence? But actually it made a very sheltered area to sit in. So I hope this has been helpful, and do let me know if there's any particular gardening issues you'd like me to address. Thank you to Never Lost for Words for suggesting plants for windy places, and do hit like if this has been helpful, because then I know you'd like more videos like this. If you haven't subscribed to the Middlesized Garden YouTube channel, we upload on Saturdays with tips, ideas and inspiration for your garden from real gardens. Thank you.